They say, in a city of 20 million people, you are never truly alone, but in Lagos, some encounters aren't just coincidences. They are fate. This is AJ Storyboard. Let me tell you about Tobi, a man in Lagos who didn't know the exact day his life changed, only that it did. It happened on a crowded BRT bus, one of those long yellow vessels that smells of damp fabric, old coins, and heavier dreams. The air was a thick soup of sweat and impatience. Everyone was wearing the Lagos face, that hard, tired mask you put on to survive the commute. That was when he noticed a woman standing near the door. She was a quiet contrast to the chaos. She wasn't scrolling through a phone, she just stood there, holding the overhead rail, her eyes fixed on the blurring lights of Maryland. When the bus braked with a violent screech, Tobi reached out instinctively, steadying her arm. His skin buzzed where it touched hers. She looked up, startled, then offered a small, tired smile and a soft, "Thank you." That smile stayed with him long after the conductor's shouts faded. Lagos moved on, but inside Tobi, the city's frantic pace had finally slowed down. He didn't even know her name, but he already felt the weight of her absence. They met again, not by planning, but by a Lagos coincidence, the kind where the universe plays matchmaker at a bus stop. Same evening. Same humidity. This time, Tobi didn't let the moment slip. As they stood under the flickering streetlights of the terminal, he finally spoke. "I didn't catch your name the other day," he said, trying to sound more confident than he felt. She let out a soft laugh that cut through the noise of the idling engines. "I didn't give it. I'm Simi." The name felt right, short, sweet, and calm. They talked about the absurdity of a 2-hour commute for a 30-minute distance. Their conversation flowed like a cool breeze in a room with no fun. Tobi noticed the way Simi leaned in when he spoke, her attention so focused it felt like a physical weight. For a man used to shouting over the roar of yellow downforce just to be heard, her listening felt like a long overdue nap. When they finally exchanged numbers, typing into screens dimmed to save battery, it didn't feel like a conquest. It felt like coming home. Love didn't arrive with fireworks, it arrived in the blue light of their phone screens at 2 a.m. Tobi would be hunched over his aging laptop, trying to finish a brand logo for a client who promised to pay on Monday, while Simi was often still awake, her eyes strained from auditing endless spreadsheets for her farm in Victoria Island. They shared 1,000 naira plates of jollof rice at roadside canteens, sitting on plastic chairs while traffic hissed nearby. He watched her talk about her dreams with a seriousness that made him lean back. Simi didn't want luxury. She wanted a life that felt settled, the kind of stability her audit report provided, where every kobo was accounted for. Tobi, whose income was as unpredictable as the Lagos power grid, listened and nodded. He believed that as long as they had now, he had all the time in the world to build the forever her spreadsheets demanded. Simi lived with a calendar in her head, likely a habit from her high-pressure job where deadlines were non-negotiable. Every plan she spoke about was anchored to a date. In 2 years, I want to be a senior associate. By December, I want us to meet my aunt. She treated time like a precious resource. Tobi, however, lived on the Lagos maybe. As a freelancer, he was a man of almost. Almost signed a big contract, almost ready to rent a better apartment, almost stable. He talked about the future like a graphic mock-up, flexible and easy to edit. Simi talked about it like a final audit, solid and necessary. Still, she stayed. She sent him prayer of the day a text and believed in his talent even on days a client ghosted him. But underneath, the friction was growing. Simi was auditing their future, and the numbers weren't adding up. As the months turned into a year, the city's pressure began to squeeze them. Simi's mother started calling more often, her voice laced with the heavy subtext of marriage, reminding Simi that an auditor shouldn't leave her own life's accounts unbalanced. Tobi's family avoided the topic, knowing he was still hustling for that one big branding gig that would change everything. Simi never shouted. She never gave him an ultimatum. Instead, she would ask gently over a plate of plantain, "Tobi, where are we going?" And every time, he would hold her hand, the hand that was often cramped from using a mouse all day, and offer that one dangerous word, "soon." He mistook her silence for agreement and her loyalty for an infinite contract. He didn't realize that even the most patient auditor eventually closes the books when the deficit becomes too high. The shift happened on a Tuesday. Tobi had just lost a major client, and his pride was stinging. He called Simi, expecting her usual words of encouragement, but her voice was different, professional, distant, like she was reading from a report. She was stuck at the office late again, fixing a mess left by a colleague. For the first time, Tobi realized that while he was fighting for his dreams, Simi was fighting just to keep her head above water in a corporate world that didn't care about her heart. That night, they didn't exchange their usual "good night, my everything" texts. They just went to sleep, two people in the same city, but on increasingly different frequencies. Against his better judgment, Tobi agreed to meet Simi's best friend, Funk. Funk was also in the corporate world, sharp-tongued and unimpressed by creative potential. Over dinner at a loud restaurant in Lekki, Funk asked the question Tobi dreaded, "So, Tobi, besides the art, what's the 5-year plan for Simi?" Tobi tried to joke his way out of it, talking about his vision for a creative agency. But he saw Simi's face. She wasn't laughing. She was looking at her glass of water, tracing the condensation with her finger. She had heard the vision 100 times. She was waiting for the execution. A week later, Tobi landed a small gig. It wasn't the big one, but it was enough to take Simi out to a nice place, not a roadside canteen this time. He felt like a king as he paid the bill. He promised her that things were finally turning around. "I'm going to make you proud, Simi. Just give me a few more months," he whispered. Simi smiled, but the smile didn't reach her eyes. She had heard "a few more months" since the day they met on that yellow bus. She wanted to believe him, but her auditor's brain was already calculating the probability of a maybe. The promotion offer arrived on a Friday, tucked inside a crisp white envelope that smelled like expensive perfume and corporate victory. It was a senior auditor role in Abuja, more pay, a housing allowance, and a driver. It was the settled life Simi had been calculating for years in her spreadsheets. When she told Tobi over a dinner of home-cooked ifo riro, she expected him to see the win. Instead, he saw a threat. "Abuja is a graveyard for dreams, Simi," he said, his voice tight. "Stay here. My branding gig with the fintech firm is almost signed. We can build our own world here." For the first time, Simi didn't see a partner, she saw an anchor. She looked at the steam rising from the soup and realized Tobi wasn't protecting their love, he was protecting his comfort. Simi turned down the Abuja offer, but the yes she gave Tobi felt like a no to herself. The sacrifice became a ghost in the room. Tobi worked feverishly to compensate, staying up until 4 a.m. under the flicker of a rechargeable lamp, his eyes bloodshot from staring at vector lines. He was designing his way out of guilt, but the harder he worked, the more the silence grew. They lived in the same city, but the emotional commute between them was becoming longer than the trek from Ikorodu to Lekki. When they sat together, Simi would be reading professional journals while Tobi sketched, two people sharing a bed but dreaming in different languages. Tobi finally landed the big one, a pitch meeting for a major fintech startup. To celebrate the potential contract, he used his last bit of savings to book a table at a rooftop restaurant on the island. He waited for 2 hours. He watched the sunset turn the Lagos lagoon into liquid gold, his phone sitting like a lead weight on the table. Simi never arrived. An emergency audit at the office had turned into a lock-in session. When she finally messaged him at 10 p.m., she didn't apologize with passion, she explained with logic. The numbers didn't balance, Tobi. I couldn't leave. Tobi sat in the dark restaurant and realized that in Simi's world, the truth was in the ledger, not the hard. At Simi's cousin's wedding in Victoria Island, the air was thick with the scent of 30,000 naira bottle champagne and old money. Tobi wore his best suit, but he felt like a low-resolution image in a high-definition room. Simi's aunties circled like hawks, asking the dreaded question, "So, what do you do?" Before Tobi could mention his freelance design work, Simi jumped in. He's a creative consultant for tech firms, she said, her voice a pitch too high. She wasn't bragging, she was editing him. She was trying to make his hustle sound like an asset to save her own face. Tobi realized then that Simi wasn't in love with who he was, but who she hoped he would become. The big one fell through. The fintech firm went with a foreign agency, citing brand stability. Tobi's world collapsed. For weeks, he couldn't even look at his laptop. The creative well had run dry, and the Lagos heat felt heavier than usual. The big one fell through. The fintech firm went with a foreign agency, citing brand stability. Tobi's world collapsed. For weeks, he couldn't even look at his laptop. The creative well had run dry, and the Lagos heat felt heavier than usual. Simi tried to be kind, but her auditor's brain couldn't help but offer solutions. Tobi, there's an opening for a graphic tech in our communications department. It's a steady salary. Health insurance. To Tobi, it sounded like a death sentence. You want me to be a corporate zombie, he snapped. The argument that followed wasn't about money, it was about identity. She wanted a man with a paycheck, he wanted a woman who believed in the process. For Simi's 27th birthday, Tobi couldn't buy the designer bag she had bookmarked. Instead, he spent 72 hours straight hand illustrating a digital portrait of her. He captured the tiny mole near her left eye and the way she bit her lip when she was thinking. It was a masterpiece of love. When Simi opened the file, she cried. They were real tears, but as she looked at the beautiful art, Tobi saw the flicker of disappointment. A portrait couldn't pay the rent. A portrait couldn't be shown to her mother as proof of progress. It was the most beautiful gift she had ever received, and the one she least wanted. A massive July rainstorm flooded Tobi's neighborhood. The roof of his small studio leaked, and the brown water dripped directly onto his iMac, his only tool for survival. He was devastated, standing in the ankle-deep water, holding his ruined livelihood. When Simi arrived, she didn't hug him. She opened her banking app. "I'll transfer the money for a new one, Tobi. Just consider it a loan." Tobi felt a coldness sharper than the rain. "I don't want your money, Simi. I wanted you to understand what this feels like." But Simi lived in a world of fixable problems, and Tobi lived in a world of felt ones. The fighting stopped. The "where are we going?" questions ended. Tobi thought they had reached a plateau of peace, but he was wrong. Simi had simply stopped auditing the relationship because she had already decided it was a bad date. She started coming home later, her scent changing from her usual perfume to the smell of office air conditioning and coffee. They became the good morning and good night people. The vibrant voice notes were replaced by short, functional texts. In Lagos, silence isn't peace, it's the sound of someone packing their bags in their head. Simi mentioned a man named Chidi. He was a senior manager from the Abuja office, in town for a month. He was brilliant, stable, and knew exactly what he wanted. Tobi didn't need to be an auditor to see the writing on the wall. Chidi was the spreadsheet come to life. He was everything Tobi wasn't: predictable, wealthy, and finished. Every time Tobi tried to show Simi a new sketch, she would mention a business dinner she had with Chidi and the team. Tobi wasn't losing her to another man, he was losing her to a better business plan. In a final attempt to find the spark, Tobi convinced Simi to take a BRT ride with him on a Sunday, away from the pressure of their jobs. They sat in the back of the yellow bus, but the magic of their first meeting was gone. The bus felt cramped, the air was stale. And the heavier dreams they once shared now felt like physical weights. Tobi tried to hold her hand, but she was busy checking a work email. "Simi, remember when we met here?" he asked. She looked at him with a gaze that was both kind and final. "Tobi, that was 3 years and a million suns ago. We can't keep riding the same bus and expecting to arrive at a different destination." Simi sat Tobi down in her apartment. No music. No food. Just a single folder on the coffee table. "I'm taking the job in Abuja, Tobi. And I'm going alone." Tobi started the old routine, the promises, the "one more month," the "I'm almost there." Simi shook her head, a straight tear finally falling. "I've spent 3 years waiting for almost, Tobi. But my life isn't a draft. I'm closing the books. I need to know what a yes feels like without a maybe attached to it." She wasn't angry, she was just finished. The final episode happens at the Murtala Muhammad Airport. Tobi stood by the glass, watching the planes take off into the hazy Lagos sky. In his pocket was a signed contract, a real one, a huge one, that had arrived that morning. It was everything he had promised her. He looked at the contract and then at the plane carrying Simi to Abuja. He realized the most painful lesson of the city: success is only sweet if the person you climbed for is still at the top with you. He had finally mastered the design, but he had lost the heart of the story. A city as loud as Lagos, can make you forget the sound of your own heart, but here, the stories never stop breathing. If this episode spoke to you, please click like and subscribe to our journey. This is AJ Storyboard. Until the next chapter, stay storied.